Welcome to the Aid to Assets podcast, the ultimate podcast for aspiring real estate investors. I'm your host, Tiffany Watson. Join me as we discuss real estate investing for 9-to-5ers. We'll talk about everything from money mindsets and property ownership and different strategies you can use to invest in real estate. I want to empower investors, especially those of us who are working full-time, who want to navigate the world of real estate, uncover the secrets to building wealth, generate passive income to achieve financial freedom. Equip yourself with resources from experts, practical tips, and step-by-step guides on how to kickstart your real estate journey. We'll also hear from 9-to-5ers who started to build their own portfolios, what they did and how they did it, so you can do it too. Tune in and transform your main job into your biggest silent investor in your real estate investment business. This is your Aid to Assets. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Aid to Assets podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Watson, where here I get to interview current and former 9-to-5ers who started and scaled their real estate investment portfolios and the real estate professionals that have helped them do it. Almost 4 months ago, I launched this podcast because a 9-to-5er myself, I wanted to have more conversations about real estate investing. I'm both a 9-to-5er and a real estate agent and investor. So 3 hats that I get to wear in my life. And there were so many people that I meet along my journey I wanted to introduce you to. The conversations that I was getting to have, the information that I was learning, it was too good not to share. And born of it was the Aid to Assets podcast, where I get to meet and introduce you to people that I have met that are doing this real estate investing. They are full-time investors. They're still working while investing on the side, or like me, they're working and they're also helping people to invest in property. Real estate can be done in so many ways. And this year, we've started to just scratch the surface to show you the many ways that you can get started. There's so many things that I can't wait to be able to show you. But on this episode, we're going to do a recap of 2023 and the top 10 greatest moments on the show. Before we get started, though, I want to just say thank you so much to every single subscriber, everyone that has listened to an episode, commented on the episode, shared the episode. We are just getting started. And so welcome to the Aid to Assets community. We're going to see y'all at the closing table. And so with that, let's jump into this top 10 list so you can see what people found the most valuable this year. Y'all know how we do around here. Get those notebooks. Make sure you're taking notes. Each of the episodes that are highlighted, there's a link to go to them directly in the description box so you're able to see the full episode. So you can hear more about these investors and how they were able to use their experience and their knowledge to get into real estate investment properties. Take a listen. First up, episode 10 is our greatest moment on the Aid to Assets podcast in 2023. In this episode, Jacqueline gathers, she gave us a tip on whether or not we should be waiving home inspections, especially when competition is fierce and we're trying to get our offer accepted. Take a look. What do you say, especially speaking of the market, where I know things are starting to cool down, at least here in North Carolina, things are starting to cool down, but we were at a time where people were waiving inspections. They just wanted their offer to get accepted. What do you tell potential buyers that find themselves facing that challenge?
It starts with the realtor.
Okay.
Any reputable realtor, in my opinion, would not suggest you waive the home inspection to get a strong offer in. Remember we talked about that car, that shiny car on the lot, you're going to pay money for, and you never test drove it? You don't want to do that. This is one of the biggest purchases you'll be making in your lifetime. Why would you waive the home inspection? As a consumer, that's your protection.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I 100%. I tell people, listen, we got to sit this one out. I believe in abundance. There are more than enough houses. This is just not our house. We can wait on that because you never know what you could potentially be walking into.
Now, investors are different. Investors have deep pockets. They know that they're going to gut the whole house if they open up the walls and find this, that, they have a budget for that. A first-time home buyer does not. So I wouldn't walk away from that house and keep looking as opposed to waiving that home inspection, because it could be a big costly surprise when you get in that property.
Absolutely. Got to know our margins and how much money we're dealing with. Now, speaking of those renovations, you did talk a little bit earlier, so I want to circle back to that. You mentioned you also work with clients to tell them what renovations they should prioritize. Can you walk us through a little bit about how someone would consider that?
Okay, so this happens all the time. Wife wants a new cabinet and they need a new boiler. So I always talk to the both of them, but I kind of focus on the wife, and I kind of tell her, you know what? These cabinets are really in good condition. You can have them painted, change the hardware on the cabinets, and they'll look like new. Do you want to sit in a house that's cold with new cabinets? The boiler should be comfort. So, we have that conversation about what's cosmetic. I always kind of offer them some kind of compromise, like painting the cabinets, changing the door hardware, or other things they could do just to make them feel good about it, but focus on that ticket, that important item that they might take care of. Because a hot water heater is funny. When they go, they just flood. Nobody can take a chance with that. So, I would start with things like that and other ticket items. And we go through it. And we find a place that's comfortable for both of them. That's a good compromise. But we make sure the things that should be prioritized are prioritized.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is probably the craziest or most unexpected thing you have seen when doing an inspection in a home?
We did a house that had bees in the ceiling.
Wait, what?
The bees kind of took over the ceiling in the basement. It was an area in the back that they kind of used for storage, and no one really was paying attention. And, they had to call in a bee expert to have them removed.
The way my life just flashed before my eyes. I'm allergic to bees, but you can tell they were not following your maintenance checklist once a year.
No, and a lot of times, it's particularly in Brooklyn, in the Flatbush area, those basements, they want to open them up for more space. And a lot of times, they take down support beams or load-bearing walls that support the house. And then the upper floor starts to sag a little bit because they remove those beams. So we always tell clients, before they take down a beam, a wall, bring in a structural engineer. Let the structural engineer tell you which beams have to stay there and which walls have to stay there before you do that. Because a contractor will do whatever you want and they'll get paid, and 2 years later, it's sinking. It's starting to sag. So I always say, before you call in the contractor, get the structural engineer in there before you remove any walls or beams.
Taking the number 9 spot comes from episode 3 with Kevin Bullock, senior loan officer, as he talks to us about the refinance process. Many of us who are currently homeowners, we have a lot of money that we are sitting on in our home equity that can be used to help snowball our real estate investment portfolios. Take a look. Talk to us about the refinance process. How does that work? Is there a time limit before you can? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So the refinance, basically what you're doing is you're refinancing the terms of your mortgage, right? So we're either going from maybe a 30 to a 15-year term, or 30 to 25-year term, or you're reducing your interest rate, right? A third thing you could do is maybe if you want to pull cash out. And I'm going to throw this plug in there too.
Okay.
All right. What good is a 3% interest rate on your mortgage if your credit cards are at 28% and you're struggling to make your mortgage payment because you have so much debt and you're drowning in debt? I'm telling people, listen, the 3% interest rate doesn't really serve its purpose if you're drowning in debt.
Right.
I refinanced, true story, a young lady. She cashed out, paid off all her debt. Her rate initially was 4%. it went to 7%. So her interest rate almost doubled. But she saved $2,200 in household and her monthly income. She saved $2,200 a month because we got rid of all her debt.
$2,200?
She had so much debt. We paid off everything.
Wow.
So now all she has is her mortgage, which her payment did go up a little bit. But the interest rate is much lower on that than it was on her credit cards.
Right.
And she still gets the tax deductions at the end of the year on her mortgage that she wasn't getting on her credit cards.
Right.
So now all she has is her mortgage and her car payment. That's it.
Everything else she paid off. With that, come on.
She's saving $2,200 a month. And she told me, she said, I never looked at it this way. She said, I was so afraid to get rid of my 4%.
Right.
But I'm like, yeah, but you're stressed out every month. You're stressed out.
Right.
So refinancing can really have a great purpose if you utilize it correctly. The process is similar to a purchase, just without a seller. So you're refinancing the terms. You have to redo title. The process can take anywhere to 3 to 4 weeks. It's not a long process at all. And depending on what you're doing, if you're lowering your rate or if you're cashing out, it dictates how that mortgage process will go. But yeah, it's a fairly simple process.
This is so good. This is why people need a lender on their team. So this is not a one-stop shop and we just gonna buy this house and then we done and we never talk again. But we can go from buying this first house, figuring out, it sounds like a whole strategy especially for us that are trying to build entire portfolios, but also if and when life happens, we can figure out, okay, we have this asset. How can we leverage it? Whether it's getting rid of debt that we may have, whether it's pulling out money to buy another property, because I'm assuming the same way that she used that money to pay off her debt, she could have used that money if she didn't have the debt to put the down payment on another house.
Absolutely. And we talked about this before. The beauty about real estate is you get to spend the same dollar twice.
Talk to us. Yeah.
So you put down your down payment. Now you have this equity, and now you could take that same dollar, pull it out of this house, and put it in another property, right? So absolutely, if somebody doesn't have debt, they could take out a home equity loan, or they could do a cash out refi. They could take that money and purchase another property. Absolutely.
Now, describe the difference between a home equity loan and a cash out refinance.
So a cash out refinance is going to be one loan. You're going to pull the money out of the equity, right? And you're going to just have the one loan again, and it's going to be the new term. So you're going to start your 30 years over again, or if you reduce your term, whatever your term is, you're starting at zero, but you have this lump sum of cash that you can basically do whatever you want with.
Okay.
That's the cash out refi. The home equity line of credit is almost like a credit card that's attached to the equity in your home. So if you pull out a home equity loan, let's say you want to pull out $50,000. You're only going to pay back what you use. So in essence, you have a second mortgage now.
Okay.
So you still got your primary mortgage, but now I took out this second mortgage, and as I use it is what I pay back. So you can take out a home equity line of $100,000, call Tiffany. Tiffany's going to show you this great investment property. You realize you only need $40,000 to make the process happen. You use the 40, you still got $60,000 in your equity. Your payback is now based on the $40,000. So a home equity line could be a very useful tool as well.
Okay.
Some people use that to tap into the equity without touching their primary, especially if they have that lower primary rate. They kind of leave that alone and now just take the home equity line of credit. But you will have 2 mortgage payments at that point.
Number 8 on our list today comes from episode 11 with Charlize Gibbs. Miss Gibbs, a high school math teacher, tells us how teachers can be investors too. In this episode, she talks about how a home that she was house hacking, she then moved out and used as an investment property, and talks about how she was able to research how to be a landlord, including how to select good tenants. By utilizing the resources at our disposal, she was able to pull what she liked and disregard what she didn't in order to create a very strong system and have an amazing tenant. Take a look. So you had this property, you were renting it out. So talk us then about the next one. What happened there?
So the next property that I have, which is, like I said, have the primary property. The next property I consider like my first investment, the rental property. So I'm going to revert back to the property that I lived in my primary residence. I consider that my next property. It's doing well so far. So I came up with a couple of plans to just rent that space out. And like I said, a lot of the stuff that's out here, it's out here. So I knew, the person who was staying in that property was going to actually have to leave. And I was like, okay, well, so far I've had luck with just getting people in those properties. So thankfully, I'm not sure if you wanted to know about how I actually got the tenants in the property or not. But again, I went on YouTube and found like a list of things. Okay, how do you get a tenant into a property? How do you, vet people? And I just went down the line. I was like, okay, I like this. I like that. I don't like that too much. So I kind of pieced things together in order to create this property that I have. So because the first time I did it, the first time I went and got the rental property, I just stuck some people in there, and that was a bad mistake. And we can talk about that a little later. But as I've grown, I've learned just how to take that property that I was in, and it was so easy to convert it from primary to rental. All I had to do was just let my insurance company know that, hey, I'm no longer living in this property. It's going to be considered an investment property. And it was an easy switch. I let the insurance company know and the mortgage company know, and that was an easy switch from that perspective. But just getting the tenants into the property, there was a learning curve, I'll say.
Absolutely, because now you're a landlord. And so it's one thing when you're living in the property. I feel like if you have a roommate, especially when they know this is your house, they're going to take even better care. You sitting right here, so you can't mess up my house and I live here. But now you shifted where you are
Right.
a full-on landlord and you are removed from the house and have someone in. So tell us about what that process was like. What were some of your biggest takeaways?
So some of my biggest takeaways as shifting from living there and becoming a property manager, it was different. It was different, and not. I'll just full disclaimer. I've only had one apartment, so I've only had one landlord, and my landlord was very hands off. I saw them the first time I signed my lease, and I did not see them ever again. So unfortunately, I did not have a real relationship or real just knowledge of landlords. So I had to do a lot of research and a lot of learning as far as landlording is concerned. And I don't think I had any friends at the time who were landlords. I had a lot of friends who lived in apartments and were talking about their experiences with their landlord. But as you can imagine, they were all negative because they were all telling me, "Oh, my landlord, isn't doing this, and my landlord isn't doing that." So I had to do a lot of research into just figuring out, okay, what is my role and what can I do, and how can I bring glory to God? I know I try not to be too spiritual, but I still want to make sure that what I'm doing, God has to be shown in this thing. So I had to look at the legal perspective and the spiritual perspective of what I'm doing as well. So it was a lot of research, a lot of just following people. Like I said, Bigger Pockets was a really, really great resource. I was able to get a lot of chunks and nuggets and whatnot from them. And then from there on, I learned about Facebook groups, and we shared questions, we shared answers. And a lot of the, like I said before, a lot of the things I was going through, as a landlord, or questions I have as a landlord, someone else already had that question. All I had to do was go out there and research what should I do, or what options do I have at that point.
Coming up in the number 7 spot is our episode with Zaakira, where she talks with us about how to be a soft girl wholesaler. Zaakira tells us about the importance of having systems that allows her the freedom to do what she's really interested in and passionate about. The work will work if you work it. Take a look. Let's shift gears a little bit, because you talked about now you're established. So you quit your job in 2021. Is that right?
2022. July of 2022. Oh,
okay.
A little bit over a year ago.
Okay, a little bit over a year, and we already in the soft girl life. So we a soft girl wholesaler. Yeah. Tell us what that looks like.
So for me, it looks like, resting in my position in the business. So I'm only doing what I'm responsible for. And I've maximized my systems. So meaning everything that I do, like I can sell a deal in like 30 minutes. I can have it pushed out on all platforms. Everything is pretty much like streamlined. It's a well-oiled machine. I have it set. I'm not redoing it. The system works until the wheels fall off. This system is rolling. So I just stick to that. And now I'm able to focus on the things that are important to me, like mindset. We also do mindset training for our team members in our other businesses, and I'm responsible for that. So that looks like feeding myself mentally and spiritually. And then now it's like, okay, I have quite a bit of free time. I can relax, I can nap, I can do whatever, but also I want to share this information with other women to create their dream life. So I'm not passionate about real estate. I'm passionate about making money though. Like I love making money, but I also love helping people. So your money-making venture might not be your helping people venture, and that's okay. So make the money first, and then now I get to do what I'm passionate about, helping women and really just shifting people's mindset and beliefs.
That is so good, because so often you hear the advice of you have to follow your passions and do what you would do if money wasn't an object. But the real thing is money is necessary. We need money to live. And so sometimes we have to do what we have to do until we can do what we want to do. And so I love that you are able to be open and honest. Like, this isn't my passion. However, it provides the means for me to be able to live out what I do enjoy.
Exactly. And I feel like that is like a big mistake for a lot of women in particular. Like, okay, so men, they have a bit more flexibility because like they don't have a biological clock. They're not primarily responsible for the children and all these things. But for us women, financial security plays a huge part in how everything else is going to play out. And so I think it's living in denial and also making your life extra hard if you're trying to do something you're passionate about and it's not making you any money right now. Like that is hard. And that's choosing it to be hard versus choosing something. Like I said, I'm not passionate about real estate. It's plenty of people that are not passionate about parking garages and laundromats. But guess what? They're making the money. And now they can do they can create the life that they desire to live because they established the ground basics. Like the basics have to be established first, and then you can do the fun stuff. And then also what I love about doing my passion second, and really just how everything has kind of built on itself, I don't have to be pressed about really anything. Like I can do things because I genuinely enjoy it. I can unapologetically say the things I want to say because like my money is not tied up in that. I already made my money. So anything else is just like extra. It's just like, okay, it's whatever. And it's just like, it's no pressure. So I'm able to authentically create and really just show up wholeheartedly without any additional intentions because I already made my money. Like anything that I'm selling, I'm like literally, my brother started wholesaling 2 weeks ago. I want to say he actually started taking it serious and started putting out signs. And his first weekend, he got his first deal. And it's a $20,000 deal. Yes, go brother. I'm so proud of him because he finally did it. And I'm saying finally because he had this information all along. So anyway, he did it in 20K in a weekend, 20 bands in a weekend. And so we're going to split that with them. I sent out the deal. We had it sold in less than a day. So that one's pending. Everything is good to go with it. We're just looking to close. But that showed him that, I was doing all of these things and trying to convince all of these people when like I could just do the work and provide the services that people actually want and make money very easily. So like I said, after making 20K in a weekend and 10K for each of us, it's like anything else, like I would have to sell 11. Wait, hold on. My book is like $11 right now. Do you know how many books? Over 1,000 books to make what I just made in a weekend. Like, so anything else is just, it doesn't really matter. So I don't compare the two. I don't expect my passion to just get to rolling like that, but I just know I can give it my heart and give it my full, I don't know how to say it, my full, just me. I can give me and not have to feel like, oh, I hope everybody likes it. Like, I don't have to be scared about it because like I already made my money.
Number 6 on our list today comes from episode 8 with Michael. Michael talks a little bit about how he was able to study and become a lifelong learner of real estate in order to be a really strong investor while he was still working full-time in the Army. Many of us are working. We still can find the time to become a real estate investor. And this guy, he had 138 doors before he ended up getting out the Army. So I'm certain we can find time to get a couple under our belt too. Here's Mike. So you mentioned that your first property, house hacking. Now, is this when you decided that you wanted to get into real estate investing, or did you just already have like roommates, or like what was that situation like?
Yeah, so I had no idea what house hacking even was. I bought a house. I was a single soldier. I was like, look, I don't want to pay the mortgage by myself. Give me some roommates, right? And so I bounced around with roommates. I mean, we did all kinds of things. We had people come in on PCS orders and then I have them stay with me, right, for lodging and everything under my company and all these different things that we were doing. It wasn't until I had actually went to one of those 3-day real estate events or seminars or whatever. And by the time we were closing up, wrapping up, I remember the dude on stage, he said, the easiest way to get started in real estate is through house hacking. And then he kind of went through and explained that it's you live in the home that you own the mortgage on and you just simply rent out other spaces. And as soon as he said that, I realized that that's what I've been doing for a couple of years now. And then the light bulb, clicked on. I'm like, I'm a real estate investor. So at that point in time, it just changed my whole mindset. And then we kind of went from there.
Wow. The power of getting into the room and having somebody who you were already doing this, but you just didn't have the language, the identity of calling yourself an investor. And so getting into these rooms and getting that light bulb moment. So now you have this moment, you realize I'm an investor. Is this when you started studying? Like, talk to us about, you're still working full time, Green Beret. That is no easy feat. So let's talk about the demand that you have as being in the military, but then also now stepping out onto this side endeavor.
Yeah, so the military, just like many of us, when we're doing 9 to 5 period, there's a lot of time allocated to that. I mean, hell, even the travel time back and forth can add up depending on where we live, right? So because the military schedule was hectic, it was all over the place, my obsession really came in handy. So anytime I was driving into work, driving to a site for training, driving or whatever, I had a podcast on, right? I had an audio book on. Anytime I had off, hell, even if I had downtime in the military, I had a couple hours before the next thing, I'm running numbers. I'm on the website. I'm emailing people, setting up phone calls. I set up phone calls with attorneys, set up phone calls with bankers. And I went in there not knowing, just sounded purely ignorant, but I went in there with a ton of questions that were very directed, very purposeful. And I'd come out with the information. At least now I know when I find myself in that situation and I know kind of the terms of what's going on, I know who I can call. And that's all I needed. And so that helped me kind of really get through there. And by leaning on others, not just myself, but leaning on the specialty skills of the banker, the attorney, and so forth and so on, I was able to still do deals while I was active duty, right? While I was moving, while I was deployed, while I was whatever, because I had the right people in the right places.
Wow, that's so good. Okay, so tell us so you have this mobile classroom, it sounds like. So you're on the go,
Yeah.
or when you have a little extra time at work. What were some of the favorite podcasts, favorite books that you remember to this day that really impacted you to get moving?
Absolutely. Got to give it up to Bigger Pockets. Got to give it up to Bigger Pockets. They were one of the largest databases of just real estate knowledge of all kinds of stuff. You can listen to those podcasts. At that time, this was way back then. It was probably, I think it was less than 200 episodes back then. And I listened to them all. Now there's like 500 or something like that. Yeah. But it's crazy. So that was a big one for me. And as I was studying, there were some other books by like Mark Ferguson, obviously the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. I was all into that. But after I started gaining the knowledge, I had to also put myself in the mindset of a business owner. So one of the books that still stick out to me to this day is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Oh,
it just talks about it's really right. It's such a good book. It just talks about how the little things you do add up. And one of the best, so everybody, most people have heard of the penny, right? You double the penny for 30 days and 31, it's worth like 6 million or something like that. But one of the things that he mentioned was just about 2 different lifestyle choices. And one decided to work out and eat healthy. The other one decided just to not work out or something to that effect. And the drastic difference in their lifestyles 15 years later, that one really hit me. And I'm like, wow, you're right. It's just the little stuff that compounds. So then I just focus on being very diligent on what we do and not necessarily worried about the big goal.
Hey y'all, Tiffany here. Are you looking to purchase or sell real estate? As you know, I'm your aid to assets, and I want to help you with all of your real estate endeavors. Whether you're local here like me in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area, I can then help you purchase or sell your next property. If you're looking to purchase or sell outside of North Carolina, let me know too. I can still help you. I have a team of agents all over the country that I can connect you with to partner on your next deal. Let's get to the closing table, y'all. We buy our way to wealth, whether that's buying right or selling better. Can't wait to hear from you. Click on the link in the bio if you want more information on how to personally work with me or an agent on my team. Talk to you soon. Coming in at number 5, Episode 5, Teresa sits in her very stylish Airbnb in Atlanta and tells us about the importance of not only finding a coach, but vetting the coach. Making sure that we're doing our due diligence before we get into these real estate masterminds, invest in these real estate coaches, or any other program that you're going to be a part of. You want to be really clear about what are the goals that you want to accomplish, and can this coach actually get you there? Take a look. So then now you decorated. So looking back, if you were to give advice to someone who is just starting out, they think they want to do an Airbnb, what would you tell them to help them find some inspiration?
Oh, for sure. I would say go with the coach. I mean, I would just say you have to vet your coach though, because there's certain things that I felt like I didn't get in my coaching experience. And it's because I didn't either ask the questions. There's certain things I didn't ask. You need to ask all the questions. My very first mentor, Dr. Tremaine Young, kept pushing me. He's like, you got to ask the questions. You got to push. You paid this person this money. You need to push and ask them these questions. And so like, he's the one that got me into entrepreneurship in the first, even thinking about like going outside of, being corporate America and just having the one stream of income. So I'd like to shout out to him for sure. For that, but it's just, you need that. I feel like you just need that coaching, and you need to have the confidence to just get it done. And it's just, once you start looking for this, find the coach, vet the coach. That's find the coach. And like, of course, everything sounds very shiny at first. I think we've all found the trap of like, we paid all this money and it's like, it's not exactly what we expected it to be. I think we've all had that experience with different coaching. And so you really need to vet, like, they get you all excited. You're like, yeah. And you're like, wah, wah, when it doesn't quite meet your expectations. And so you definitely have to vet your person for sure. Ask around, do different things. I know they kind of press you with the sale, like, you got to get it now, you got to do it now. It's going to be discounted, blah, blah, blah. And they give you all this flashy stuff, but you really need to slow your roll a little bit and really look into who you're investing in, who you're putting your money in. Ask the burning questions before you pick them as your coach. So
That is
But
so good. That is
yeah.
so good. I have definitely fallen for that for sure. So been there and realizing now on this side, what were my expectations before I even signed up? And I realized sometimes I didn't know what my expectations were. So then when
Right.
they weren't met, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that's what I was wanting. So really taking the time to think about myself first. What am I looking to do? What am I looking to get out of this? And then does this coach, do they have the ability to meet those needs?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
Love it. So let's now pull back the curtain a little bit. How does an Airbnb run? What is needed in order to make it successful?
Okay. So mine, the reason I love theme unit, and so like just to back up a little bit. So when I got an Airbnb, my whole point was like, I just want an Airbnb. I want passive income, whatever. I didn't realize my Airbnb has morphed into so much more than that. And so, we can talk about that a little bit like later, but the Airbnb process, it really isn't as complicated. It's like, you have all these 5 million gurus out here now trying to teach you the Airbnb. Like it's this magical thing. It really is not that difficult. It really is not. You get, you get your spot. You have to make sure you take if nothing else, take some freaking professional pictures because you have to make your spot look beautiful. You make it look appetizing, whatever, but focus on design. Do not buy cheap furniture because people are rough on your stuff. Like I bought a vintage record player, for instance, and it was a working record player. I had the needle and everything. Within my second case, the needle was broke off my record player. So it was no longer, record playable. So, I took all the records away, it's like no more records for you. But I mean, so the radio stuff still works, but things like that, you just have to consider things of that nature. But it really is, getting on the platform is really not that difficult. You put your address in, you add on, make sure you fill in all the things, whether you're, you offer like shampoo, conditioner, whether, you have a smoke detector, just like everything, like there's 50 million things you have to check off the box. You just got to make sure you check off every single box because there's an algorithm for everything. And it seems to always change, to be honest. So just little details, but I mean, it really isn't as difficult. I mean, when people have asked me before, I'm like, I can walk you through it, walk you through the process. And I mean, all these gurus out there that you're spending all this money for, I'm like, you really don't need to pay them because they're not really teaching you anything. They don't know the algorithm either. Let's be honest. I mean, some of them are, doing better than others. And it may just be a volume thing versus truly knowing the thing. But like AirDNA, which is a software that shows you like where potential profitability would be. If you put like, you get one here, you get one over here. So I didn't have that. I just went, my coach said, go rent here. And that's what I did. So it really isn't as difficult as people make it seem. I don't know if that completely answered your question, but without going into every single detail of how it truly works.
Coming in at number 4, Dr. D introduces us to the world of creative financing and real estate. She's going to go in depth a little bit more about seller financing. And here in this clip, she explains both the benefits for the seller as well as the buyer and why someone would consider using seller financing to invest in real estate. Check her out. So now as a new property investor, why would I want to convince a seller to do seller financing instead of just going to Bank of America?
Oh, good question. So two things, I'm going to answer that in 2 ways.
Okay.
So 1, why would I as a buyer want to buy with seller financing? And 2, why would a seller want to sell with seller financing? Okay. So answer number 1, why would I want to buy as someone with seller financing? It's, going through this non-traditional realm instead of just doing the way that everybody knows how to do it. Why would I want to learn this new skill? 1, because you can create your own terms. Right now is a perfect time to be able to know how to create your own terms. We are living in a high interest rate market and an inflation market where values of properties are very overinflated. So when you go the traditional route, you are really hurting to try to afford money or borrow money from a traditional bank because the rates are so high. But the pros of going to the seller directly, you can say, hey, you know what? The traditional rates right now are in the 7%. You can actually go to the seller and say, hey, I will offer you in the 5% range, 4% range, or less than that. Or maybe more. You can go to the seller and say, hey, typically a traditional bank wants to, allow me to borrow money over a 30-year period, but I'll pay you off in 10 years, or I'll pay you off in 5 years. So the pros of buying with seller financing is that you create your own terms. So that's the kicker. The pros to the seller with seller financing, and it's one, taxes, Uncle Sam. That's one of the biggest pros to the seller, right? So anytime you are selling an asset and you are making a big chunk of money on that asset, depending on your current tax basis, for the most part, if you're not, a homeowner, and if, depending on how long, I'm not going to get into the tax rules, but for the most part, it's often that if you are buying as an investor, that seller, when he or she gets that big chunk of change from you, they are going to be taxed by Uncle Sam with a very large percentage of money. And that is called capital gains tax, because they have just gained capital from selling of that asset. And when you are selling, or I should say, but when you are selling with seller financing, that is actually deferred. You're not actually having to worry about that huge capital gains tax bill. So that is a huge benefit to the seller.
Amazing, amazing. So that was such a clear breakdown. So as the buyer, if I wanted to potentially go into a deal that was seller financing, I can avoid the bank. And so this is especially helpful for people who your credit score may not be amazing and you don't qualify for some of the terms that you would want to. But also in this market right now, where we're seeing these high interest rates that you may not feel comfortable with, this is a part of negotiation. Everything is negotiable in real estate. And so you can go to someone
Absolutely.
and they essentially are going to be getting passive income, because you're now going to be paying them monthly for your mortgage. You are going to be getting passive income because you are going to be renting this out to someone else. We love a good win-win for everyone all around.
It's a win-win. And if you are an ethical investor, you will make sure that everybody involved in the deal has something that comes out of it. So I definitely have to double click on what you're saying there, Tiffany, because another pro to the seller of selling with seller financing is they are having monthly income without the headache, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine being a seller and maybe you're aging out of your portfolio? Maybe you want to liquidate some assets in order to start enjoying, the work that you've been putting in for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years as an investor. Or maybe you're just a regular mom and pop owner and you were holding on to that property, but now, one of the people that owned it with you, maybe you had a divorce or someone passed and you just really can't afford it. Can you imagine, instead of having to deal with a tenant and learn a new skill of how to be a property manager, or maybe they were already, managing their own property. Can you imagine now still being able to get money every month, but not have to worry about the skill set or the responsibilities of being a landlord? It's a win-win.
Number 3 on our list comes way back from episode 1, where we learned there are definitely some options if you don't want to deal with tenants and toilets in real estate investing. In this episode, we learned about the potential opportunity to invest in hotels and still make some good money. Hotels are real estate, y'all. Take a listen. So let's switch gears a little bit, because you said, okay, so we had this rental. This was cute, but it was a lot of work, especially with this tenant who don't want to pay. So then you made a pivot in your business. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So look, when the market is hot and you tired, sell. Okay. So it was 2019? I think it was 20. Yeah, it was 2019. Market in Philly was hot. Like when I tell you, people were looking, they were like crawling around trying to be the first to find out about properties before they hit the market. So our property manager was like, look, if you tired of this house, this is the time to sell. I know it's January, but we have cash investors who are just, they didn't even, no inspection, no questions. They didn't even ask, was the person current on the rent. They just took.
Wow.
They just made an offer. We ran the numbers and was like, yep, we'll still be profitable. We'll pay off any outstanding debt, which we didn't really have any, maybe some like credit card stuff for stuff we fixed the last 6 months or so, but it wasn't really much there. And then we said, okay, this is good. So we closed, once again, less than 10 days, cash offer, split the proceeds according to our JV agreement. And then I held on to my money, waiting for the next opportunity, and really in prayer. Like I told God, I was like, I know real estate is profitable and a great way to build wealth. I just don't want to deal with toilets and tenants. So please show me, show me how do I make that happen? And I talked to my dad about it. And then I vocalized out loud to other people what I wanted. And the God attracted to me what I needed to hear. So literally 2019, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do toilets and tenants. I'm just sick of it. You know, we still have our condo in Maryland to this day, but that's it. I'm not actively pursuing rentals. And 2020, a friend who I only know through the internet, literally through Instagram, reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm hosting this conference with this 2 women that invest in hotels, and you do real estate, they do real estate. Like, can y'all link up, and can you be a facilitator for one of the speaking panels? And I said, sure, I love to speak. And, 2020, everybody's online, all the conferences, all the everything. So I said, oh, I don't have to leave my house and I could do something fun. Like, sign me up, right? So I got introduced to Davon Reeves and Jessica Myers of Epic Collective. And we did this conference about generational wealth, investing in real estate. The panel went great. And I was like, I want to keep up with these women. Like, they seem really dope. And so June of 2020, we did the conference. I built a relationship. I reached out and said, ladies, I want to continue to stay in touch, and I would love to see what we can continue to do together. How about I have you on my podcast, the Purpose of Money podcast? They were like, okay, great. I'd love that. So July, we recorded. August, we recorded. September, their episode drops, how to invest in hotels and through collective investing. So bringing people together to buy hotels. It's still one of my number 1 episodes on the show.
Wow.
But I was like, listen, that interview was dope because one, when I interviewed them, never did I think I would invest in hotels. I literally was like, this would be really cool for my audience, right? Like, I'm sure you do that. You're like, this would be really cool for my people to hear. But then you're interviewing and you're like, wait a minute, I can do that. Like, why don't I do that, right? So I said to them, like, I really like what you're doing. I'm going to sign up for your email list. So once again, God is always, always working in your favor. So September episode drops. Life is great. 2020, my business exploded. So I'm super busy talking about all things life insurance, real estate. October, the end of September, they sent out an email like, hey, who wants to buy a Hilton with us? Didn't see it. Missed it completely. Second email goes out. Hey, are you interested in investing in a Hilton hotel? See it. Now I see it.
Now we on.
Read it. Oh, I want to learn more. Girl, the rest is history. I saw that second email. That's how I knew it was for me. I looked at the prospectus, possible returns, purchase price, talked to my husband about it, had a third party review the deal. He was like, these numbers are great. And then I had to take into context the environment. It is 2020. People are not traveling and hotels are going literally on sale. Literally on sale. So we had this unique opportunity to purchase an amazing, fairly new hotel in Oklahoma. And it was a business that post-COVID is going to do great. Pre-COVID, it did great, right? It's literally just, again, another motivated seller. So the owner had 8 hotels, couldn't obviously keep up all of them in a pandemic when they were all suffering. Bank comes along, is offering a great opportunity to take over the note. We said, okay. And Jessica and Davon said, let's pull some people together and purchase this together. So I told my cousin about it. October, we put our money in. We closed by the end of October, like 20 days. And literally that's been the smoothest hotel closing I've ever had. They have none of them.
The first one, they needed you in. They needed me
to get hooked into the deal. None of them have been that easy since.
Number 2 on the list comes from episode 13, where Tiffany debunks some myths about paying off property taxes and what that really means. If you're thinking about purchasing tax liens, be sure to give this episode a listen before you do. Otherwise, you just might be getting a thank you card and not the property you were hoping for. So now, for people who may not be familiar with the tax liens, I imagine I have some listeners that are like, wait, how is it possible that you can purchase a property from the state or county for $1,600 and then that be it? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Okay, so basically, tax liens and tax deeds is what's being sold at the courthouse stairs. And tax liens and tax deeds are byproducts of delinquent property taxes. So I know a lot of you have heard that, oh, if you go pay somebody property taxes, you get to keep their house. No, you can't pay no one's property taxes. You need to purchase their tax liens and their tax deeds. Is a difference between pay and purchase. So if you pay someone's property taxes, basically they may send you a thank you card, like, thank you so much. We need to do this again next year.
Yep.
But when you purchase their liens or their deeds, depending on your state and county, what happens is you have a vested interest within that property now. You understand? If you're purchasing a lien because you're in a tax lien state, what happens is you take first position over all other liens on that property, including the mortgage. The mortgage is a lien. Now, if you're a tax deed state, depending if it's a redeemable deed, you have possession of that actual deed. All this information is recorded at the courthouse. You're the deed holder. And if it's a redeemable deed, what happens is state statutes allow that property owner a certain amount of time to come back to reclaim that from you. But it reclaims it with interest attached to it. You understand? So it's a win-win situation. And if you're in a tax deed state, similar to the way the city of St. Louis operates, when you purchase a property at a tax sale, the property is yours. After you complete the confirmation process, going through all the other detailed processes and procedures they have in place in order for you to get that deed in your name.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that breakdown for those that aren't familiar. So y'all, depending on where you want to invest, whether that's home where you are, or if you want to be an out-of-state investor, a big portion of that is to figure out, are you going to be in a tax lien state or a tax deed state, and what does that mean for you? This is part of the due diligence as you're thinking about the market in which you want to invest, is understanding those nuances. So we've talked before about, like, is this a landlord friendly state or a tenant friendly state? This is another example of that. Is this a tax lien state or a tax deed state? And so this is an opportunity for you to invest some money. And even if you're, for example, in a deed state where there's a right of redemption period, you're still making money on the money that you spent. So this is another way we are getting away from bank accounts, savings accounts that are giving us 0.4% interest. And we are making some more money on our money. And so if you may say, I don't actually want to be a landlord, but I do want to make some money. I have some capital that's just kind of sitting right now and I want to make some extra money. This is a great way to be able to do that. Number 1 on our 2023 wrap-up is episode 9 with Kim LeDay, as she explains to us the power of group economics and how she was able to get in on her first deal with no money down. No wonder y'all love this episode the best. Of course, Kim broke that down, what that means, and how you can do it too. Take a listen. You preaching now, Kim. That is so good. And one of the things is it's not always malicious, right?
Oh, no.
When people just benefited from a different version of you that you no longer want to subscribe to anymore, that makes them uncomfortable, because if you don't have a plan for your life, best believe the people around you will. Whether they realize it or not, they want you to act a certain way. They want you to show up a certain way. And when you decide to move different, you moving left when they wanted you to move right, it can definitely create some tension.
All facts. All facts.
Okay. So let's get into this first deal, because you said 2 things that I want us to unpack. Is one, your first property was a flip. And so that in itself, that's a lot already. And then everything that could go wrong went wrong. So tell us about this property and let's unpack how this went down.
Okay, so with this property, I kind of got on this property in a very unique way. One of the things that I kind of focused on right off was kind of building up some business credit. I knew nothing about business credit either, but just trying to build up my business credit, because in my mind, I wanted my EIN to hold as much as it could. I wanted to keep Kim separate from everything, and I wanted my EIN my business to kind of manage everything. And so that was one of the things that I originally started doing, was just kind of trying to build that up for myself. What that led to, and I didn't move with that kind of strategy initially. I wish I could say I was that smart, but I wasn't. But what that led to was the opportunity for me to get on that first flip of mine. I actually got on that first flip with no cash.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. Cause people, we hear that. So wait. So first, let's start with, tell us what the EIN number is, just in case people aren't familiar with that. And then how we get into this property with no money.
So your EIN is the number that's assigned to your business. So it's like your business's social security number. What a lot of people miss with when it comes to business credit is not necessarily beefing up that EIN. So you've got, 3 business bureaus. You got Dun & Bradstreet, Equifax, and Experian Business, right? And so you want to build up business scores under those bureaus. So that was one of the things that I focused on doing. One of the ways to do that is acquiring trade lines. So I acquired some particular trade lines, a few with Home Depot and Lowe's and Florida Core, really only because they made sense to me at the time. I figured I could use them at the time with this one Airbnb that I wanted. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the reasons that I grabbed them, not knowing that it was going to afford me an opportunity to get on my first flip. The way that happened, my first flip, my business partner was in a hard money loan. And so with someone having business credit, it was advantageous in that I could buy materials for the deal. At that time, I had net 90, net 60 accounts at Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon, Wayfair, Florida Core. So basically, I could buy any of the materials that people would need for a project. So we had 4 business partners total. 3 of them came with cash, and I came in lieu of cash with my business credit.
As always, this has been another amazing episode of the Aid to Assets podcast. Thank you for joining me in on our 2023 wrap-up of the top 10 moments of the podcast this year. Y'all, we're just getting started. 2024, I have some amazing guests, more knowledge, more strategies for you. I am so grateful that y'all tap in with me each and every week to learn how we can start and scale these real estate portfolios. This year, we have done all the things from house hacking to joining joint ventures to even investing in Dubai. We even got more about Dubai for you in 2024. Stay tuned. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Share this with your friends. Share this with your family. We need more investors that are going to take care of their properties and the tenants that are going to live in them. Can't wait to see you at the closing table in 2024. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another insightful episode of Aid to Assets. Remember, your journey from 9-to-5er to successful real estate investor is within reach. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep investing in your future. If you'd like to know more, connect with me on Instagram at Aid to Assets. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Until next time, happy investing.